Came too far to turn back. The return of the lyricist. Get it together.
What up, y'all? It's Mike. You're listening to You Good. This episode, we have Shalewa Sharpe. Shalewa's a comic who was originally from Atlanta and is now residing in New York. Really funny. She and I actually did this thing for Jimmy Fallon where we were surprised by Chadwick Boseman from Black Panther. It was unscripted and it was funny and it was great. So we always have that in common. But we're also comedians / like friends, you know. So we talk about stuff from time to time. And when I was telling her that I had this podcast going, we had a conversation, and I asked her if she wouldn't mind talking about the loss of her parents, and she was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So here it is. Hope you enjoy it. I know you know me, and you know like my history with like mental health to a certain degree, but like, you know, I've been to therapy, like abandonment issues from my mom and my dad. A friend of mine was murdered. It's like I went into the hospital. Like there's all these things, suicide, like all the shit, and I wanted to start something where it was like, oh, you can listen to it and know that other artists have gone through something like this, or other Black or brown people have gone through something like this. But like if you've had any kind of trauma, be it like loss of friends, family, anything like that, you don't have to go through it alone. You don't have to feel like it's such a lonely thing and no one can relate, because you can hear stories and hear how people deal with their shit. Right. So basically that's what I would like. So I'm trying to make this thing so it's like it's a tool for people. Sure. And also to destigmatize, I guess, the conversation about like us having these type of conversations. Right. So like it's like twofold. It's like, one, it's like, hey, we don't have to not be scared to talk about certain things. And then the other side, for those of you who need to talk about certain things and are scared to talk about it, here's an example for both of you. Two people just talking about it. Right. You know, so that's what it is. All right. Okay. I know it's a lot. I know it's not. I know it's like, I've met you. I know it's not like we're gonna talk about today's news and shit. No, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. So did you talk about, I guess, you know what, because I remember when you were telling me about what was going on with you. I think you were like, I think it might have been last year. Mm-hmm. Was it last year? Or what, with my parents dying? Yeah. Well, my mother died 3 years ago. 3 years ago. And my father died 2 years ago. Yeah, because I remember, I think we were at the creek. Okay. When I think it was your mom. All right. When it was your mom. Sure, that makes sense. And then we were talking about all everything that was going on. Right. And then, like, the next time, like, we really caught up, you were like, my dad. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I was like, okay. That's why I was trying to think. I was like, okay, how long? Because I was like, I knew it wasn't the last time we had that talk. It was like the time before that. Yeah, it was not that long ago. Yeah. How are you, like, I know, like, you're starting to do, like, we did that show at the Pit. Mm-hmm. And, like, you're talking about it or like, you know, whatever. Like, how's that, like, been? Like, well, I haven't, I have a couple of jokes about it. Yeah. Mostly about how to deal with, just kind of about how to deal with grieving it. Okay. In that I'm not sure I'm doing it correctly. I'm certainly, you know what I mean? Like I don't exactly know. I don't want to be a professional orphan. Yeah. You know? Yeah. But I also don't want it to seem like I'm like, I ain't like them anyway, and then and I'm gone, you know. So it's a fine line. And are you grieving enough for your relatives? Do they think you've grieved enough? Like a grieve Olympics? Yeah, you know, but just like, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Because, you know, you're kind of lazy, Shalewa. So I don't know if you're really truly grieving the way I would grieve, the way we have, you know, that kind of thing. When we grieved back in my day. Yeah, that type of thing. And so, so there's just that, and how, you know, I'm agnostic. I'm open to anything. Yeah. So, so what are we doing? Are we doing ghosts? Are we doing, you know what I mean? Like, how am I going to talk to them? Right. Yeah. How's that going? What's that going to be? Yeah. And, personally, it's looking like dreams. Really? Yes. Dreams are how they contact me. How many, have you had like a lot? Right after? Or like I've had very notable ones. I usually remember my dreams. Yeah. Pretty vividly for at least the first hour after I wake up.
Like I can, if you ask, hey, what'd you dream? I can tell you the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then it fades.
Yeah.
And then some elements of some stick with me. I've got some recurring themes,
Okay.
Late to a high school class, or
Okay.
got to run to an exam. In fact, I've had enough dreams where I'm looking for something and I'm running late that I actually start to wake myself up when I am like, oh, wait, I got to do it. And I'm like, just get up. You're about near the end because you're going to be looking for this for a while. So just get up and watch something.
That sounds like the easiest way to explain like any anxiety I've ever had. Like with like sleeping, you're like, oh my God, I've got to do something. And then you're up and you're like, don't go back to sleep. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to, you're never going to find this thing. You're going to, that wardrobe goes back forever. You're never going to find those shoes. So it's like that kind of thing. And, but it's been through dreams where I have a dream where it is either clearly one of my parents or it is someone who is supposed to a stand-in.
Okay. So it's like you feel that emotional connection.
Yeah, but when they start speaking, I'm like, oh, okay, you're my dad. Like that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then I listen, and I don't know if it's because I'm not big on symbolism, but whatever it is that they are literally saying to me, I mean, it is very just like, oh, that's on brand. Like, they're not saying any sort of thing that I have to figure out. I had a dream once where and I'd been worried about a lot of things, trying to get everything, worrying about stuff I'm certain I couldn't control.
Yeah.
And I had a dream where I was dealing with broken toilets and was just trying to fix it and everything. And my mom just showed up and she was like, girl, let that shit go. Like, literally let that shit go. And then I woke up and I was like, oh, she just said, let that shit go. Like, like there's nothing. Why do I don't need to look into a dream dictionary. It's pretty much cut and dry.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I think, I feel like my brain knows, don't give her any flowery language. She's not going to try and figure that out.
Yeah.
Just tell her what you need her to know. And I go, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And, so, it's like that. They're very literal, but that's usually how she comes through. She comes through more often than my dad, which is also on brand.
Okay. You gotta stay on brand.
I mean, when he comes through, it's literally like, where's the remote? Like that kind of thing.
He came back and said that to you in the dream?
Yes, he actually did. It's just like, it's in keeping with him. But then he will come through and do something dad-like.
Yeah.
And then I will continue whatever it is that he's doing. Like at some point he stops, and then I have to keep going. And he's like, "Yeah, you're doing fine. You're doing fine." So it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's very funny. I had a dream over the weekend where it was a stand-in for my father, and he, whoever the person was worrying about financial difficulties.
Okay.
Which is also very on brand for my family. We are genetically predisposed to bankruptcy. And so he, this person in the dream was just worrying about stuff. And I knew in my head, this is my father and he's worrying about financial stuff like he always did. And I woke up from that, and then I just spent a couple hours in bed just saying to his spirit that was around, like, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Like, you're free of all of that.
Wow.
So I'm still trying to talk to him. It is, it's heavy. And then, you got to, I don't know, go to a store and get something. You know what I mean? And then you've just been doing some heavy psychic work that you don't know what you're doing, but it feels like what you're supposed to be doing.
It's so, like hearing you talk about this, it's like I still have both of my parents, right? Mm-hmm. But I lost my literal best friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Gone.
Yeah.
And the way I was trying to grieve was that same way, where at first I didn't grieve at all because it was my boy, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm not supposed to be all sad and broken up, because everybody else who was sad and broken up wasn't broken up around each other.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then as just time went on, just I would get dreams from him a lot, and it was really it was the same kind of thing where it's like, it's the stand-in. Or if he talked to me, it was very simple. You know, it was just like, hey, like, you're fine. Or, you know, do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of reassurance of like that voice that I would have for myself. Like, I'm sure that you deep down somewhere, and you also was like, hey, let that shit go.
Right.
But sometimes it's, I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it's like energy, like when you're sleeping, like I don't know if it's just like like having these ideas or I don't know. It's just so weird to have those dreams. It's just like,
it's
what
working
is that?
through whatever is going on during the day. It's just like, all right, here, I see that you've been worrying about this.
Yeah.
Let's get your mom in here and see if she can tell you in a way where you can process it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just your subconscious just like working overtime almost.
Do you ever talk back to them? Like, do you ever speak to them, or they just speak to you?
In the dream state, I interact.
But like it's not like a conversation. It might be like they say something, you say something.
Yeah, sometimes it is just like because sometimes we're doing a thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we're just interacting.
Yeah.
And then sometimes more often than not, it's some sort of interaction that's happening within the dream.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a float by. I'm assuming they float.
Yeah.
A float by, just like do better kind of thing. Okay. You know, like it's an actual
float by, not like a roll up.
Not like a roll up, but a float. We're floating by.
All right. Just to make sure.
But then I also and then there was also just your garden variety things like after when my father passed away, it was very sudden, and we waited probably about a month before we had a memorial service for him, which we also did for my mother because we had him cremated.
Yeah.
So we just waited a month so that people who needed to come from out of town could rearrange things because his whole family is in New York and they were in Atlanta. So they had to, get that.
They ought to come up here, right? Or did they go?
They went to Atlanta.
Okay, the whole New York family. Oh, yeah,
New York family. Yeah.
That's, you know what? I saw you. I think we had talked about it like right when that news hit because we were talking about. I was like, oh, I think it might have been like, I don't know if like it was a festival or if I talked to you about like Red Clay or whatever it was, and you had mentioned that you were. That you had to go back to Atlanta. Yeah. And you were like, I was like, what's going on? And that's when you told me. And I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah,
you know
it was.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you try to fit in the memorial services in between, like, festivals.
Yeah.
Which is,
but it's a thing that, like, it's a thing that, like, I don't have a problem, one knowing, and two, even, like, talking to my lady today, she was like, oh, you're recording an episode? I was like, yeah. She was like, well, who? And I'm like, Shalewa. She's like, oh, I love Shalewa. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it was like, yeah, like, I love her, too, and I like making sure that she's good, like, Thug Passion, stuff like I'm invested in, like, you as a person.
Well, thank you.
Know what I mean?
Appreciate that.
You're welcome. You know? There you go. You don't hear that much on Comedy Talk Radio. But when I heard that, it's just like, it's like immediately feeling for you also on top of what we talked about before, and I remember when you told me about your mom, I had brought up Mike, and I was like, yeah, that thing when somebody goes, it's like, and we talked about like either expecting things to happen or being kind of like at those different things, but we've never like had like a kind of a grieving.
Yeah.
You know what I
mean? Grieving is tough, especially when you overthink things because you want to make sure you're doing it correctly and you're doing right by the person. And since we're comedians, we are overthinkers.
Oh yeah.
So we're putting, I think, probably too much weight on ourselves to make sure that we're doing all of these things right. But it's also like, but that's how my brain works. What do I do? So it's so it can be tough. My mother, it was a long drawn out type of thing where with her it was cancer, and she had gone through chemo once and had gone into remission. It was colon cancer. She had gone through chemo once, gone through remission, and then it came back. And this time when she started the chemo, she was just like, this all hurts too much. I'm just going to stop and then maybe start up again later. Which, it's like, all right, well, I mean, all right. you know your pain threshold. She had already had a stroke. She had a stroke when she was like 46 or something. Oh, wow. And so she was already like paralyzed on her right side and had been in a wheelchair and all of that stuff. So she had handled a lot. So she knew what she could take. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like, okay, if this takes a downward turn, and I can't see why it would go upward. Like, I don't see. I
mean, always bet on black though, but you know, no.
Then I just started kind of dealing with it, kind of early, which sounds super morbid. But
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
It's like, because if the fact is like, okay, well, we all know that there's like an end.
Yeah.
And you know that.
And there's stuff to do after the end.
Yeah.
And why would I just wait? Like, there's not going to be an end. There's no end. What? End? Yeah. And then be caught off guard. Like, we saw this coming.
Yeah.
So I started to like kind of mentally go through all of that stuff of like, oh, she won't be around and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't try to treat everything like it would be the last time.
Yeah.
But, there's just a poignancy. There's just a lot of crying on planes.
Yeah.
And and then and then you go on and do whatever. So by the time that she passed away, it was tragic, but also because of my brain. I was on stage the next night, like
nuts.
Yeah, this is what I do.
And what was it? Okay.
And on the night, and we waited like a month in the for the memorial service. And the day of the memorial service, I went and did a festival, and then 2 days later recorded my album. Like, I'm like,
stay eating cookies.
Yeah, I'm like, what are we gonna? She probably would have wanted it that way because she overworked herself. Oh, so man. She probably would have been like, you should slow down, but
I feel like. I know for the case of me, like a lot of my grieving has ended up manifesting itself in productivity through comedy or art.
Sure.
Like everything. And so it's like it's like if you're not a performer or artist or a comic, you wouldn't understand what that stage means to us, especially like when things are just total shit and you're like, just give me a fucking mic. So,
I'll say something, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Because you're also seeing weird, funny things. And you're supposed to be sad, but actually there are many moments of
hilarity.
Humor. Yeah, just extremely funny things that people are doing or saying, and you're as you're just being a person, not trying to crack jokes.
Yeah.
So you just take that and sweeten it a little bit, and then you just say something on stage, and then you decide how personal you want to get with it.
Yeah.
But so other than like a few jokes about like wondering how my mother would contact me, like that kind of thing. And then at that time, my father was still alive, so I would tell that joke and then talk about how my dad was dealing with church ladies, because newly single. They were very active in the church, newly single.
Yeah,
a widow were. I mean, someone's gonna have to cook for them, like that kind of stuff. That I had a hilarious.
Trying to finesse.
Yeah. And I had a conversation when I was like, "Hey, man, watch these church ladies," and he was like, "I'll bet I'm on it. I see them. So
I'm watching it, baby.
I got it. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. You haven't been out there in a while.
Yeah. You don't know?
Yeah, it's been like 40-something years. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They're real. They're ruthless.
I haven't been to church in a while to see how.
I'm just talking ladies in general.
Okay. But, I can't say that because I'm a feminist.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Everyone is ruthless. I just want no trouble.
But I mean, like older women. My father was an attractive man, and my mother was in a wheelchair. They were at church all the time, so they're just watching.
They're waiting.
This attractive man take care of this woman in the wheelchair. And they knew him pre-stroke, too. So they watched this transition and they were driving miles. They were driving like 20-something miles to go to this church because my mother really liked it. My dad was involved in all this stuff.
Yeah.
And they're just, so come on. That's like Are you kidding?
For
They're
real?
literally at my mother's memorial service. The pastor, who's the reverend of the church, who's a woman, was like, "Ladies, give Lonnie a couple of months."
We're gonna play that. We're gonna bleep that name too, because we get bleep the names. Okay, but yeah.
But give him a couple of months. Don't just that. I was like,
really?
Yeah. She's
in the house of the Lord. What?
Yeah, she's a real one though. That reverend is a real one.
Yeah,
real one. She's not.
Yeah.
She's serious. She sees it.
She sees like everybody. All right.
Okay, that's
calm
great.
Down,
but
calm down.
Give him a minute now.
It's a weird thing to say, but it's like, did anybody tell you like that about like starting to grieve? You know, like when you saw the things happen, like, and you were like, I saw it going down. Was anybody like, don't grieve just yet? You gonna grieve and get ready. Just happen when it happens. Yeah, did anybody tell you like that?
No one really talks about it.
Yeah. Did you ever talk about it? Like, I'm just curious. Oh.
I feel like I remember a family conversation where maybe we were like, we want to be cremated.
Okay.
And so that's all. I feel like that's about it.
That's the only time.
I feel like, and otherwise, no one really talked about grief much, or death. But I don't think but it wasn't something that we were supposed to be scared of. I don't think. I'm not scared any more than you are you're in a plane that hits turbulence and you're like, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
Because you just want to get. But otherwise, there's never been like a fire and brimstone moment, or just like you're going to go to hell, or any of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
That wasn't really in the house.
But not even like just even that portion, but just the thing of like being like, hey, I'm already going through the loss.
Oh, okay.
Of her.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Like, I know she's still here, but I'm already preparing myself for this loss. You know what I mean? And, like, talking to other people, like, about it. Like, did anybody,
no.
So you didn't at all? So you didn't?
No.
Like, and not even with family?
No.
See, and that bugs me out. Do you understand? Like, looking back at it, it's kind of like, I did the same thing too when my best friend died. So it's like a weird thing to as I hear it, I see it in myself and was like, why didn't I tell like my when I did the pilot episode, I had one of my best friends on here who's a writer, and also we shared Mike, you know. Right. So, and we were like, why did we never talk about it? We've known each other for 20 and we never had that conversation like, man, I'm hurt by this for real.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
But that was after it happened. But like in your situation, if you see it,
right.
I'm sure somebody else in your family might have been feeling the same way.
I'm sure, but I feel like we're from a large family of people who don't talk. Which, I mean, I don't know how regular that is, but I mean, like, not about something like that. And also, the situation basically is on my mother's side, she was the youngest of 7.
Okay.
So my sister and I were the youngest of
the babies
of the cousins.
Okay.
So of all of our first cousins, there's like my sister and then me and then like I don't know, like a 12 or 13 year jump to the next cousin.
Who are older.
Who are older? Yeah. Age jump.
Okay, that makes sense. So you guys would have been like babies. They would have been like 12 and
so
13
there's no real talking about it, and then there's just the because my my sister and I, you know, we're my mother's the youngest. We're the youngest from the cousins.
Yeah.
Most of the people on my mother's side of the family are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
So we didn't see them for holidays.
Christmas.
I
just found
big,
out.
Yeah, there's no big thing like that. And then when we moved from New York to Atlanta, we left my father's side of the family, which is probably, in my makeup, the more emotive side.
Okay.
So we didn't have them, and we didn't really talk too much to, I think, my mother's side. And so, and then there's just like the age difference where cousins are just still seeing us as two little girls.
Yeah, because you're always 12,
because we're always, we're always
them.
just the two little girls who were just around.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there was like any thought of like, oh, let's talk about grief. And it's like, why do you want to talk about that? I got to go to work, you know?
Yeah.
And like things, you know, there's just that kind of thing.
Wow.
So I don't know, I don't know if I want to talk to him. Do I? Do I want to?
I don't do.
I feel like I may take on.
You don't, why?
Their grief.
Because
that I personally will take on their grief without realizing it, which is a thing that I do.
Really?
Yeah. When someone's going through a hard time and they're telling me about it, I take a little bit of it on.
But can you take a little bit of it on if it's also your grief? Because you're like...
No, because it's done a different way. It's not my grief. It's how they feel about the person that's gone, which I don't know anything about. So now they're telling me about it.
Why
so now
they feel that way.
Yeah, so now I have how I feel about the person that's gone and how they feel about it.
So now you have feelings of how they felt about the person that made you feel away.
For example, I don't cry at the things that would normally make someone cry.
Okay.
So what I cry at, I usually cry at people's reaction to the sad thing. So,
giving me an example of that.
Like, at my father's memorial service, I'm like, almost like business as usual. Because the last time I was in that church, it was my mother. That's what that building is to me now. That's where my parents go. And was sad, very sad, but still dry-eyed until his family started to come up and talk about what he meant to them. Which is not necessarily something I knew. So I was taking that on. That made me sad, but not him being gone. Because I was already like, I'm learning they're not really going to be gone in that way if I'm open to that.
Wow.
Like their spirit in some way will still be. Yeah. So they're not going to be gone, but that's just how I know them. Yeah. But I don't know what they meant to other people. And as other people tell me about that and react to it, that is what I take on. And I mean, like when my father passed away, it was so sudden. And it was around the time of my mother's birthday. It was on my sister's birthday, which is terrible. Yeah. And that's a thing that she's got to deal with. And that's her story, and we're never going to hear the end of that. But, no, just kidding. She's working through having to, like, separate the two. You know what I mean? It's tough because we're Leos, so, like, our birthday is our birthday. It's the reason we're here. And this dude. But it was also around the time of my mother's birthday, and she had been gone for, like, about a year or so. So people were calling. I'm at the house having to deal with that, and people were calling to check on him to see how he was doing, knowing that my mother was gone. Like, I know it's her birthday and blah. So there are all these messages of people calling, and I'm having to call them back. And I just went into customer service mode where my father was a product that was discontinued. And I'm having to tell these people that he is no longer here. And having to hear them take this surprise and, like, deal with it on the phone and then just blurt out their feelings right then. And I'm just on the phone, you know, I'm just taking that over and over. One of his close friends was like, don't do this to me. Don't tell me this. I don't want to hear this. And then she was like, I have to go. And then she called back a couple hours later. And she was like, I was just so shocked. And then she started to talk about. And so it's just like that. Yeah. So I take that on, and that is heavy so much that I just have muted whatever my reaction to it would be, and that is troublesome because that's going to have to come out at some point. And so now what I am in the middle of figuring out is how do I let that out, because I feel like that messed me up like creatively. Like I felt blocked for a very long time, and still do to some extent. And really? So I am trying to, like, figure out how do I deal with all of, like, what I have. Because I hadn't even really dealt with my mom. Yeah. You know, just started I was just starting to. Yeah. And then this happened. So it's, like, two completely different situations. And it's, like, And I took on so many others, and I was just like, well, I'll just keep going like I did with my mom, not realizing that the way I was able to do that was I had my sister and my dad.
Yeah.
And now it's just me and my sister.
And she's also going through.
And she's also going through it. Yeah, she's also going through it. So it's like, yeah, how do you, neither of us know. So it's like, and there's also a very weird feeling of like, when there's a parent around, and you know they're around, even if you're not that close, you still feel like there's someone in your life who can tell you what to do. You may not listen to them, but there's someone who can go, here's what you need to do. They're older. They know you in a way that you don't even know yourself. They know you at your core, and they can tell you something that you're like, maybe, or whatever. But then when you think about it, they're absolutely right. And just from knowing you and being you.
Yeah.
And when that is gone, that is the weirdest feeling. Like, oh, no one can tell me what to do, but also no one can tell me what to do. Oh, no. Yeah. So it's like, so that's a weird thing, too, to deal with. So I'm trying to figure out how to deal with all that.
Yeah, like hearing you talk about like the difference that I didn't even like realize, I guess, in the sense of like, because sometimes I just look at like loss is loss in a way, because it's like you have a connection to someone and you will always have that connection, but you can't actively share that connection with that person anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like mom's always your mom, dad's the best friend's always your best, but it's like you just don't have that anymore.
Right.
You know, like, you can't share it with them because they're not here to do it. But hearing, I guess, like when I found out about Mike, Horace, the one I had on the like he called me and told me.
Right.
And it was a weird thing because like that was Easter. It was Easter morning. And I just see all these calls coming into my phone, and I'm just curving all of them. I'm like, it's like 4 a.m. Why are people calling me? Like, hey, when nobody been religious ever? Why is everybody calling me on Easter? He's risen. He's like, no, what is this? It's never happened ever. So I kept dubbing it, and then like I even dubbed Horace like twice. No, I dubbed him once, and he called right back, and I was like, what? I was like, wait. And he just like like he just told me, and I was so distraught by, like, I was in my disbelief, and we both decided thing, and I was like, all right, well, let me just talk to, let me hit you up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And at that moment, it's like, I didn't want to give him, like, my kind of, like, pain of what I was going through, because I knew, like, he meant the same thing to both of us because we're both on that same level.
Right.
But it's like, we never had the chance to talk about it. And for you, it's like, people are calling you for the second time, and you're like having to be that bearer of the news.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you?
Well, also keep in mind they're older people. These are my father's friends.
Yeah.
So that filter, that young filter of just like, we don't have to talk. We don't need to talk about this. That's gone.
Yeah.
They've lived long enough that they talk.
Yeah.
And so that I feel like is a thing that just happens as you get older. You start to realize that the stupid thing of like trying to stay strong and all that kind of stuff, just after a while, just kind of fades away, and you just
kind of be.
Yeah, you just kind of be, and so they were just being at me, and I get, when I get it, I told
Why you being at me, B? Don't back up, man. Don't just be being.
Please.
What's that Common's first good album? I'm playing around like War for Chocolate was great. You know what I mean? I want to get into no deep hip hop right now.
But yeah, so you just kind of let it happen, and then they'll say it because it's the shock of it, and they'll say things or whatever, and then they're like, "Oh my goodness, oh baby, you got a lot to do, don't you?" And I'm like, "It's fine. I mean, I got call waiting. I got a landline and a cell. I mean, I'm working the whole thing. Yeah,
like a trap house. I don't know if trap house has phones. I don't know if that's what happens.
I don't know how that works.
I don't know if they have Optimum. I don't know what's going on. What's the Wi-Fi here?
But yeah, so you just kind of take that on.
Yeah.
And yeah, like. But I understand why. I get why when you're older.
My thing is like I'll say for me it's like it was the thing of like still feeling in a way like sometimes like Like, I can't see Mike's parents anymore. Like, I can't, because if I see him, I'll just, like, break down, because there was a time where I was basically, like, living in his house for a while.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I love seeing all of them when I do see him, but it still, like, kind of breaks my heart because I'll miss him more. You know what I mean? And there was and Horace is, like, somebody who, he was always... He's still he's still my best friend, right? So like, but when we see each other, like, we have our own fun because we have our own memories and stuff. But we're always like, fuck, man, Mike's not. We can't just be like, hey, we call Mike over,
right?
You know what I mean? But so when I do talk about him, I've like kind of channeled it in a way I feel through the art. So it's like, even like me doing this podcast, in a way, it feels like being able to just grieve and be all right with it, in a sense of like, oh, this person isn't here. I've gone through all these things and kept internalizing things and taking on everybody else's pains and be like, okay, like, that's why I was suicidal. Like, I would feel bad for everybody, and then I would also feel bad for myself because I wasn't able to carry everybody's weight.
Right.
So I thought something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, if I can't even carry my own weight, then what am I even doing here? But it's really of like, well, this weight, a lot of it is just because you took these other motherfuckers' weights off.
Right,
you don't
exactly.
need, like,
that's
just
exactly
take all that
it.
shit off you. Like, what are you doing?
Right,
You have your own shit to worry about. Like, yeah, this person's going through this and that. But that's just. What was your first thing on stage about it when you started talking about it?
Let's see.
Also, wait. Before we even get there, have you gone to like a professional talk about this?
Nope.
Okay, that's what part.
Yeah. No.
So you went on stage. So you will go on stage.
No. I've been on stage.
It makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
And you said it. You know.
I've said
bits and
I've
bars.
said some stuff, but I feel like.
And why not, yo?
Yeah, I feel like with my mom, I think it was mostly right after my mom. I think it was mostly my concern about my father and church ladies. That was like the day after.
Okay.
That was
the immediate reaction.
Yeah. On stage anyway. That I thought was funny.
Okay.
That was that I was like, because I'm still. It's not like I'm going to say everything. My brain was like, well, what's of the stuff that has happened in the past 36 hours? What's been the funniest thing?
What am I okay with telling them?
Yeah.
Like,
what?
I want to tell them. I could tell them everything in a funny way.
Right.
But what
am I? Yeah, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Yeah. If at all. And so, what can I tell them? And it was just about my concerns with, just church ladies hitting on my dad in a church lady way. And that was, I think, after my mom. I believe that's what I talked about. And after my dad, what was it? Let's see. After my dad, I feel like after my dad, I didn't say anything for like a week. Maybe I did go up a couple of days.
Okay.
After he passed away, but then I didn't. I had no urge to do
say anything. To do comedy. Period.
Yeah. I had no urge to do comedy just because it was so like, whoa, this is a lot. Now this is officially a lot.
Yeah.
Like, family members going, I don't know how you two are doing this. And it's like,
what?
Well, shoot, I don't either. What? Don't do that.
They never tell you good luck. They just look at you with the question mark
like,
face.
whoo, all right. I mean, y'all got to make these decisions, I guess.
You are your mother's daughter.
I know. Just do your best, but Lord, I'm glad it ain't me. Like, what?
Blessed be the fruit. I don't know what people say.
What? So I just didn't have an urge to go up and say anything because I was processing a good deal.
Did you cancel any shows or did you do all of them?
No, because I wasn't necessarily supposed to be there, so I didn't have anything.
So you were already.
So I didn't have anything.
Okay.
And when I went up after, for my mom, and a couple of days after my mom, or after my dad, it was at a room where I started in. So I can go.
That was like home.
Yeah, so I can go and just say, hey, can I do like 5 minutes or whatever? But
low risk, low everything.
I guess so. Well, it's a dive bar, so it can all be derailed by someone who's had too many PBRs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone who's had too many beers is not paying attention. to somebody bleeding on stage. So
which is fine.
Yeah, so that's the whole thing of it.
Yeah,
is
shout out
that
to the
now
open
I'm
mics.
just trying to make the lushes pay attention to. And but I didn't really talk about it much. And then when I did, it was, what was it? Just about like, by then I had already had the thing about not knowing how my mother would contact me. And what I was, and then how my dad, I was saying a bit about how he had started to see someone after my mother passed away, but he didn't really tell anyone about it. And so the first time I was speaking to this woman was like his final days on earth, and I'm like, hello, it's nice to meet you. Now here's the status on your boyfriend, which is a nightmare. And so I just talked about what a nightmare that must have been, because I can only think about it from like an older single woman point of view, and it's like, oh, this dude's great. We've hung out. I've been to his place. He's been to my place. Yeah, also, he was making trips to New York. Didn't tell his daughter nothing. I was like, oh, okay, you really wouldn't tell nobody nothing. And he, and just like, so that's like, those were the jokes. That's what I thought was funny. At the time, was just like how this woman had to deal with, what a nightmare that must be.
For her.
To deal with a suddenly sick, and you're in another state. And how do you make that decision whether or not, and how much, that's hard. That's super hard. And so, and within that, I made a joke about seeing my father naked for the first time.
Okay.
Which is a thing that happened in taking care of him. And somehow in a house full of women, the only one of them who saw him naked on the regular was my mom. Never saw him naked. Never. Ever. Very impressive how you're not a slip up once. And he had to be near death for that to happen. And
you're going to slip up, you're slipping out.
Right. And how I say to people in the audience how, like, that's a terrible way to see your father's penis for the first time, but it's also kind of the best way to see your father's penis for the first time. Like, any other way is suspect. But that way, taking care of him for sure. But it also just feels weird because you're like, you're having to help him, but then you're also like, oh, there's his penis for the first time. But then it's like, oh, and know.
If it has to happen.
If it has to happen, though, that's kind of the best way for it to happen.
If it has to happen.
And, and also the issue with doing comedy and talking about this is that I'm usually in front of a lot of young people, and they don't think parents die. A lot of them don't know. They're like, I mean, I know, I've heard. There's theories, but like, that's not a thing, right? You know what I mean? They're so, especially in New York, they're so full of delusion because you have to be to live here to a certain extent if you don't have roots here. If you have no roots here, it's weird. I
mean, as someone who has roots here.
You know what I mean?
And
I also have roots. So, that's why when I moved up here, it was a very, just like, I didn't throw a hat in the air. I already knew I was going to have to be hunched down fighting the elements as soon as I got here, because that's what my first 8 years were like.
You knew trash was on the streets.
You know what I mean? Like, in my first 8 years, I had things falling on my head and scarring me for life and hitting my head on, like, the change box on the front of the bus, like, that was like at 3. So it's like, I already know what the city can do. So that's what but like, so I'm saying this in front of young people, and they're like, I mean, that's funny, but I mean, like, can that happen? Like, parents dying? And it's like, they do it every day, B.
People get shot every day.
Parents die every day,
B.
So it's just like, so I haven't said it much, but I did say, I remember being at a show and saying the thing about, I'm stressed out trying to figure out how my mother is going to contact me from the great beyond. And another comic, his mother was at that show, and apparently he told me later that when I said that line, his mother leaned over to him and was like, "That's real." So older people
get
who've
it.
gone through it, or older people, they're like, It's
a thing that like after I came out the hospital, I did the same thing where it was like I kind of not took like a sabbatical, but it was kind of like
you just take a little break.
Yeah, because I like a little break, but it wasn't like a real break. Like it wasn't a break, like in a sense of I just wasn't actively pursuing getting a lot of gigs at that time, and usually, and sometimes like I don't because like I'll have like my own show or something because like I'll do like R.I.P. King Hippo, I'll do something like that, and it's like I'll have a room where I can get up and I'll get my shows and go out and do some road work, whatever. But like I was just like, you know what, I'm not like in a space to go in front of these audiences who I'm trying to perform for, and I'm not saying what I want to say, or like I'm not, you know what I mean, like, or they don't deserve to hear what I have to say right now because like everything is so fucking raw.
Yes, exactly.
Like, and it's like, okay, if I have all this rawness in me that I can't show in front of people, that means that I'm not ready to perform.
Right, exactly.
Right,
so
like I'm not ready to do that.
So I haven't. So now I've streamlined what I talk about in regards to my parents to just dealing with the healing part of it. Yeah. And I haven't talked about my father's new girlfriend in a while. Yeah. In quite some time, although I want to. Okay. Because it's so funny to me.
It's like once you get the healing chunk done.
Yeah, I'm like, exactly. And then, I haven't like. There are other things, other elements of, that I just haven't talked about because I'm like, I haven't dealt with them yet. Yeah. And I feel like I need to deal with them on some level to see if I can even say it. Because I don't want to say something for the first time and then spend the rest of my 8 to 10 weeping. Yeah. Or yelling at people. Or you know what I mean? I'm like, let me break your brain on it. Let me like try and figure out a few things first before I just...
Well, I mean, that's why I asked you about the therapy stuff because, like, I grew up going to therapy here and there. After I went to the hospital, when I get out the hospital, I did, like, inpatient services. Like, I would go speak to, like, their counselor every week or so. Right. And after a while, I went down to, like, every month. And then it was like I go when I wanted to go. You know what I mean? But I think it's really helpful to speak to somebody.
I'm dying to go.
So what's insurance stuff or like
insurance stuff, time, definitely.
Also, everybody, shout out to Medicaid if you see if you're eligible because it helped me out.
I went to one of those places where you tell them kind of what your problem is and they kind of feed you into
a system of a thing
or just like they're like, okay, maybe this doctor with this process might be right for you, that kind of thing. And we're going to also edit out Medicaid because somebody might try to throw somebody. Sure, right. Yeah, because I don't know, because niggas crazy. And so you just couldn't find anyone. And then I tried to make some other appointments on my own where I was just like, let me figure it out. And then it is just like a time thing. Yeah. And I just don't make time for it. I feel like I figure out, but I also I know that, and I'll just get to it when I get to it. If something has to break first, then so be it. But I mean, like a thing that I realized, I was like, what if I get to a therapist and it's too late? And I was like, it'll never be too late. This grief is gonna be on my back forever. So it's like, I'll get to it. I guess when I get to it. But I probably will need to have some sort of breakdown, like of some.
It's
sort.
A lot. No, it's
a lot. So I mean, like I'm getting closer, and I have been trying to put the pieces together, and trying to figure out, and it's tough kind of asking people because in a way it's good because some people have advice I never would have thought of, but then some people go too deep in a thing, and I'm like, yo, man, I just need a basic. Is there like a group of folk that just are talking for a hot second and then maybe, but I mean, like I'll get around to it. Yeah, you know what I mean, like.
It is a daunting fucking task to get done. You got to find. It's like dating. You got to find the right one if you're gonna go to like a therapist or something.
It took me a while just to get like a regular doctor. Yeah, because I have my mother's I inherited the stroke situation.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be on top of it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I'm not sure how much she was, but I see what happens if you're not.
Yeah.
So, it's like that.
Now you start
kind
taking care of yourself in a different way. Or being just aware.
Just being aware of it.
Yeah.
And even that was just like, oh, you know what? And that was like a thing I realized here. I was like, oh, you don't have to stick with the first one that you go to, because this one's terrible. I'm gonna try another one. So it still took like some trial and error on that. So I know that that's a thing, but it's discouraging because when you are looking, you're usually at a low point, and then you're just getting discouraged, more and more discouraged as you're trying, and things are falling through, and it's like, well, you know what? Then just fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, you know what I mean? That's a thing.
The thing that changed for me, like the thing that changed me around into like, all right, how do you get like, I spent my, like up into the breakdown, like the breakdown, like the point of the breakdown where like I'm in the bathroom by myself with the Ray, like on the phone, all the shit. I was kind of like, what the fuck, right? And I had to like find my answer to that question. Because it was like, if you really don't have an answer, it was like, I needed to get better. It was like, did I want to get better? And I was like, yeah. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, did I do everything that I need? Did I try my damnedest? You know what I mean? Like, there's been so many things I've been putting off. Like, oh, whatever. Did you do everything? Because if you did everything you fucking can possibly do and still feel like this, then it's a different thing. But I knew in my heart, I was like, I didn't really go ask for help. I didn't really do the effort to do, like, I really did not try as much. And then I said, okay, let me try. And then just things started changing. Everything changed, like with my grief and just everything, because it was like, oh yeah, he's gone. I'm sad. All these other things are going on. But you know what? That's that moment, and the time continues. I can't be stuck in this moment. You know what I mean? Like I can still keep that like that love with me or that pain with me, but now this pain is being worked into like a stronger muscle. You know what I mean?
Sure,
so it's not, just weird. Like I just always want people to go speak to somebody. Like I'm just
I mean, like I just,
when you're ready to, of course. You know what I mean? But
sure. I got so many other things that I probably need to work on. That grief is almost like, I mean, and then there's grief, but also, you know what I mean?
Shit,
like that's not even like the most.
Talk about shit. Yeah, just everything.
Yeah, that's not even the most pressing thing, to be honest with you. That my brain, only because
you got anxiety.
You
got super anxiety?
No, I don't think. Not the way people seem to.
So what would you if you the thing that you have where you have this thing, right? What is that? What would you call that?
Low self-esteem.
So it's a low self-esteem thing?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's always nuts to me when I hear that, but I've had low self-esteem for years, and people would be surprised.
Yeah, no, that's definitely it. Just so, you just don't believe anything you do.
Yeah, I had to get through that too. Like even with like, and that was another thing with when I took the break from performing, because it was like, there were so many things that like, you get the auditions for and you go and you do and like, you murder and it just doesn't happen. And you're just like, what are we doing?
Right.
Like maybe I think that I'm this level and crushing, but maybe I'm not, because apparently I ain't go to whatever this thing I was supposed to go to. You know what I mean? Like I didn't go to this festival or be a part of this show or whatever the fuck. And I just felt like that just felt like worthless. You know what I mean? I'm looking around at everybody. I'm like, what? Am I just worth this like live show that I did? Am I just worth? You know what I mean? Like, are people using me for this thing? And like, do we really have conversations with these people? Is my worth just on? I gave them stage time, but it's not my worth. It's just like a producer's worth, or just, you know what I mean? Like it's not. You know what I mean? Like it's not personally tied to you. Like they're not looking for Mike. They're looking for stage time, and you just happen to have it. You know what I mean?
Right,
and that's like that low self-esteem thing happened where I'm like, oh, am I just being tolerated out here? And it's just like it's a weird thing. Like I had super low self-esteem, and this was like, like last year. I was like in that kind of mode, and I don't know what like triggered it, but I had to get out of it by just like fucking go. Man, hey, I could just go to therapy. Just go to therapy. I mean, just try it. It might not be for you.
I mean, look, it's on the list.
It's on the list. It's on the list.
So now,
as you're back out and you're performing and you do like, you know, it's on the list of things to do, whatever. How does art like kind of play a role for you? Like in, I don't want to say like in grief anymore, but just like in general. Do you talk about everything now? Or are you like?
Well, I don't know. I guess actually, I don't talk about everything. Sometimes I worry that I do, but I don't think I do.
Okay.
We
all do. Oh, like, did it go?
Yeah, I'm like, did I say too much? And I'm like, no one's listening. And that's low self-esteem. No one's listening. No one cares.
People listen. People do care. We just don't know who they are.
That's and honestly, to me, it's almost like that's fine.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
That's perfectly fine.
Right amount of esteem, right there.
Yeah,
that's
I
fine.
guess
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, like, my concern with my low self-esteem is not whether or not other people love me or respect. It's me loving me.
Yeah.
So
you gotta love yourself. I do.
Yeah, but not in a love yourself before other people can love you. Cause that's not necessarily
baseline
true.
Equally love, like,
that's not necessarily true either. And I mean, like, that's also a shitty reason to try and love yourself, to trick someone and not trick someone, but in the hopes that somebody else will.
Yeah,
that's also BS.
It's hard to find love, someone else to have love for you when you don't have love for yourself. Yeah, that's how it was for me.
That
it was
hard. That's normally what is on the stickers and the magnets.
It is.
But
tattooed on the forehead.
That's not. I don't know if that. I don't know how universal that is.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, it worked for me. So that's why I like when, like, even like doing this, it's like I like hearing everyone else's kind of like opinions and thoughts of it, because I know that there's people who might listen to this and be like, oh, I need to love myself before I love somebody else, whatever. And there's other people who, that's like, that's just not my shit.
Yeah.
And it might be something that they relate to with you. And I'm like, yeah, you talk your shit.
Like, I've heard that, but then I'm like, I don't know. And so, you know, we'll see if I ever figure that out. If not, I mean, it was a good run.
You put those on the board?
I didn't hurt nobody, so it's probably fun.
You was on the Tonight Show. You good? You got to put that in the intro. You good?
Oh, boy. So bizarre. It was bizarre, right?
It was bizarre, but I think it was less bizarre for me than it was for you.
It was still surreal.
It was, I don't know if it was like when we were there. Did you not think that he was going to be there at all?
Well, yeah, but that's just, I don't trust anyone. Like, why would you get a bunch of people to come down to 30? Yeah. Why would you do that?
But either way, I was like, I don't care. It's just a dumb thing. So, like,
yeah, it's just like, I mean, when he came out, I had been watching a lot of, like, press junkets on YouTube. So
really?
It literally was like watching a YouTube video. So when he came out, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, sure, why wouldn't he come out? I've been watching YouTube videos of Black Panther press junkets for like a week.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah,
of
course, that's my downtime is watching these interviews. So why wouldn't he come out now? So it wasn't even like a what? And also, I never react like what to anything.
Same here.
So it's like a lot of like my sister's coworkers were just like, why didn't your sister like scream and yell? And my sister was like, no, that was her. Yeah. I'm like, that she said that's just kind of how she is. Yeah. So
I think
you know,
if you watch the video again, right, we're the only two people who don't hug him. Everybody else
gives him
a hug.
I
gave him a pound. I was like, hey, what up, man?
People were just like, I would have hugged him immediately. I was like, nah, I don't know him like that. Also, again, he's a YouTube video. I don't think he's not real. Why would he come out? And why would I hug him? I don't know him. He don't know me. I don't know. You know, trust issues. I probably should do something about that.
Now we're going to put that right above grief, right?
You know? Yeah. So, it's low self-esteem, eating issues, trust issues. Pops and moms.
Okay.
We'll get to them.
We'll get to that. Yeah. That's like the detox album.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll deal with it. It'll be released.
We'll get there.
That is so fun. I just remember like the interview or something. After it was like there was so many things happening. They were like, oh yeah, and the Killmonger's mama. It was just like, because people were like, oh, Mike's just silly. This person is a star. And I was like, yeah, she is a star. I was funny too, guys.
Yeah.
I was funny too. And everybody was like, yeah, you were. They were like, yeah, you were funny. But like, yeah, but we know you. Shalewa.
Well, that's just what's going to happen.
That's why I was like, it's bizarre for you.
Who know you are always just like, yeah, no, you were good. You know, my sister's favorite comedian from Atlanta is Rob Hayes.
No.
And her second favorite is Clayton English. I'm not even in
no,
top
you ain't
5.
even.
I'm not even on the. She's never even listed me on her list of like.
She got people from New York and Atlanta.
Yeah. So
yeah,
they tired of you. They know what you can do. Yeah, you just.
It's what like you just comfortable with it now.
Right.
You know what I mean? But either way, it was just kind of like one of those things where, as a comedian, I'm like, oh, I'm like super happy, but I'm also like, this like. Is this the start of like Shalewa's like killing him? Because it was just so crazy to see like one day, and then it was like Billboard or whatever it was. I was like, what's happening? This is crazy.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
it's like when Carly blew up and everybody blew up. It's just like
it just takes a cat video. It literally just takes a cat video.
That gives me anxiety. The thing of like not like blowing up, but just like we work so hard, and it's like
but that's the thing is
that's what we do.
we work hard. That wasn't necessarily work.
No.
That was literally just something I was going to tweet out, and then I'll just say, I guess I'll say it. To his face, okay.
Yeah.
And and I'm like, I know that's great, but it's also like the fleeting nature. All it takes is a cat to pick up something. Mm-hmm. And it with its mouth, and then it's like I never happened. So it's
so funny.
It's like you gotta keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's like you can that moment can easily be replaced by that next moment, but it's also like looking at like I guess like the kid who sang in Walmart. You know what I mean?
Sure, right.
And like he went viral, and then it's like I don't know if the team swarmed around him. I don't know if the agents came a knocking.
Right.
But then he was on Ellen, and then he had a record deal, and then he has a song that I like, and then he had an album. You know what I mean? Like what's happening?
Yeah. Well, I'm here to tell you, everyone, anyone dreaming of going viral, that will not necessarily happen.
Ever.
If you have a Nigerian name. Your DMs will blow up, but other than that, that's really the only change. And I felt terrible telling people like, "Oh, I'm just garden variety American black." Like
I thought you were.
Yeah, And I was just like, I wish
so good.
I am not living up to the majesty of this name at all. I am so sorry, y'all.
I don't even know. I think you should do a Killmonger's Mama web series. I think it'd be
here's the thing. I know nothing about any of that stuff. I literally went to see the movie so I'd understand jokes on Twitter. The last superhero movie I saw was the first Iron Man. And I saw that. I rented it. So I saw it like a year after. So I was already late for that. Like, it's so not my thing. So that I even got the chance to do that, I'm like, oh man, and that's another. I'm like, I'm sorry, y'all. Like, I'm not going to be able to represent you in the way that you may think. Like, I don't have a T-shirt.
So you went to Black Panther for research.
For research and also Daniel Kaluuya. But
let him jump behind the curtain.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
why you like naked now? What happened? What was going on?
So like it's a different thing. It's a totally different thing.
All right, well, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much.